So I'd love to start, let's start lying down. We will stand up, but let's begin lying down, please, with the feet flat on the floor and the knees pointing up towards the ceiling. I feel like it's nice to start on our backs with the feet flat on the floor, to start to build that sense of grounding that we'll need when we're in a standing pose. So here, just notice your 2 feet. Notice what your footprints feel like on the floor. You could just get very clear about your 2 feet, the texture that they're resting on, the way that your footprint steps into the floor that you're stepping on. And already, just by sending our awareness to the soles of the feet, it's a nice, sometimes quick way to start to ground the breath in a little lower place. So you might notice your breath and maybe allow the breath to move into a rhythm. Allow the belly to fill with breath. Breathing with the diaphragm muscle. And by guiding your attention down into the soles of your feet, you might start to notice this overall sense of grounding throughout the whole body, the back of the pelvis, the shoulder blades, the back of the head. And you can start to draw that kind of picture on the floor, illustrating the shape that you are making on the floor, all of those points of contact. And you might notice already someplace that is holding away from the floor, sometimes as if like the neck or the jaw is afraid it's going to fall down. You can just allow those parts of you to release a little more, if they want to, you know. And then gently bring your knees over to your right side, so you'll come into a twist. You might choose to come to this twist via Uttanasana. You might hug both knees in close to your chest first and then come over to one side, or you might just go right over to the side. Either way, your knees are pointing to your right, and your left shoulder can start to go down towards the floor. Maybe that left arm will extend out to the side. And there's kind of a give and take here of like the shoulder wanting to go down, the knees wanting to go down the other way. And sometimes we can't get both parts on the floor, and that's okay. You could use support underneath your knees or support underneath your shoulder to kind of bring the floor up to you. And as this is the beginning of the practice, I'm not going to really suggest which side ought to be on the floor. I think that you can kind of feel into, you know, I'd rather sink my shoulder into the floor, have a little space between my legs, or vice versa. So you can make those adjustments and feel the way that the ribs are making their way towards the floor on the left ribs. And then with your left fingers, we'll start to make circles on the floor. And to the best of your ability, you can leave the fingertips on the floor as you trace these big circles. So you'll come up overhead, dragging your fingers along the floor. Your arm will probably bend as you come over your face with the elbow, and you can come down and around. So as much as you can bend your arm, flip your palm, whatever you need to do to keep the fingertips on the floor as much as you can. a little hint is it's nice to involve more of the arm and shoulder to make that happen, rather than trying to stretch open the shoulder joint or reach with the wrist or the fingers themselves. So you might feel this sense that the whole shoulder structure is moving as you come up and around. The elbow bends, the wrist might flex in some way. And then you can go the other way, dragging the fingertips along the floor as you make these big circles around you. And start to bring your breath into this, so you can just notice how your breath is moving with the movement. Nice, and then just relax that arm, have it come out to the side, and draw both knees in towards your chest. Apanasana, just hugging your knees towards your chest. And you can inhale and just let your feet come down to the floor once again. Your hands can come to the sides and your palms might face up, or maybe they come down onto your body somewhere. Just taking a moment before we do the other side to feel this kind of symmetrical. There's a word, symmetrical, the symmetrical feeling. Or more likely an asymmetry. You're noticing how one side might feel different than the other. And then let's put the knees over to the left side. And just investigating on this side, like if it's better to have the knees, prioritized with gravity, or if it's better to have that right shoulder closer to the floor, if some sort of padding or support would be helpful. Noticing how the breath moves in this twisted shape, how the right arm is sinking towards the floor. Maybe that whole arm is extended. It's possible. Yeah. And then dragging your right fingertips along the floor, you can start to make these big circles around. And the elbow will probably bend at some point, and the shoulder blade might come into the picture. And it ought to. All of those adjustments can allow them to happen. You can move as quickly or as slowly through these circles as is interesting to you. And then when you're ready, you can change directions. And as you're circling with the arm, just notice how the pelvis is heavy on the floor, how the knees are heavy on the floor or the prop. Nice. And then when it's time, you can leave the circle, come back to center and hug your knees in towards your chest for Apanasana, hugging the knees towards the chest. You might flex the feet and squeeze the knees towards your chest, flexing the feet and letting the sitting bones try and find the floor. Even as you're pulling, your whole kind of lower body away from the floor, your sitting bones are sinking towards the floor. That'll give a little something to the low back. Your shoulders, the back of the head are all soft and released on the floor. Outer upper arms are descending towards the floor. And then you might rock side to side or make some little circles. Eventually, you'll come to one side and come to a comfortable seat. So you might roll to one side and use your hands to press yourself up. You might sit up on a prop. And we'll just open formally open with a chant. We'll chant Om. Let's chant 3 times. They can just kind of roll one after the other. And we'll have a nice deep breath come in between. So breathe in, Om, breathe in, Om. 3 times. So if it feels nice, you might bring your palms together, resting your thumbs against your sternum. And we'll breathe in through the nose, filling up from bottom to top, letting the sound move from the floor all the way up to the top of the head. And then we can come to hands and knees when you feel ready, making a tabletop shape. So spread your fingers wide. And in your tabletop for a moment, just let your chest collapse, let your pelvis kind of just hang out, however, let the low back dip, just like a kind of shitty construction of table. It's just not very sturdy. And then we'll press into the palms to find space in the chest and across the upper back and shoulders. And then reach your tailbone towards the wall behind you to sort of, I don't want to say flatten, but kind of semi-straighten that curve of the spine. So there's a sense that the navel is sort of pulling up towards the ceiling. That space between the shoulder blades is inflated a bit. And suddenly the head and tail are connected. And you can start to just shift forward and back, like your tail is being pulled back towards the back of the room, and then the crown of the head is getting pulled forward. And you might get this kind of feeling as you shift back and forth that this head and tail are influencing each other's movement, that they're moving together. In this case, they're moving the same direction, both moving back, both moving forward, both moving back. And then we can start to take some circles around the wrists. This is kind of sometimes nice for the wrists. So you're shifting that tabletop around in a circle, or sliding it around. The elbows are straight, the palms are pressing, the whole circumference of the palm. And notice how your breath moves here. At what point does the inhale come in? When does the exhale come out? And then you can change directions, just rotating around the wrists. Good. And then you might bring your fingertips out to the sides. Or you could bring your fingertips to face the back, like face your knees. And you can make little circles here. If that feels good. That like barely feels good to me today. You could just kind of shift around a bit. And then gently turn your fingers back to face forward. Sink your tailbone down towards the floor to come into cat. And then as you inhale, you can come into cow. So we'll move through these 2 shapes, being really precise with the breath. So the breath is completely lined up with the journey from one shape to the next. Yeah, the entire inhalation brings you into cow. And then there might be a moment where your chest is shining forward, your tailbone's lifting up slightly. before the exhalation comes. There might be that kumbhaka, kind of the pause at the top or bottom of the breath. Same with as you empty out, you round the spine into cat pose. There might be a moment where you notice there's an emptiness, like no movement, a pause in the movement, a pause in the breath. And then you come again. Great, and then you can round through cat and come all the way back to balasana, child's pose. And you might decide to bring your hands alongside you with your fingers reaching back towards the back of the room, giving the wrists a break, giving the arms a break, letting the shoulder blades be heavy and fall towards the floor. Here you can feel the breath in the back body. You might even imagine that exchange of air literally happening through the kidneys or through the shoulder blades. What would it be like if that was where the breath was actually happening? Great, and then you can come on up when you are ready. You'll come to fours once again and create that really sturdy tabletop one more time. So you're pressing into the palms and the fingertips. You're reaching the tail back in space so that you feel that the low belly is helping connect your head and tail. And then tuck your toes, maybe walk your hands a paw print forward and start to lift the seat up towards the ceiling for downward facing dog. You might bend or straighten one knee and then the other. With the wrists, you're pressing the hands down and forward, so that crease in the wrist is maybe not even existent. You're pressing it kind of a diagonal down and forward with the hands. You're using the space between the first finger and the thumb to hold your weight here. On your inhalation, we'll come to plank. So you'll let your heart come forward, growing you forward into plank. And then as you exhale, as if someone's got you like hooked from the back of the navel or from the pelvis, you'll come up and back to downward facing dog. And if that image is helpful, you can use it. That there's something of string, like pulling your chest forward. That's what brings you into plank. And then there's something pulling your hips back, maybe something kind of like hooked onto either side of your pelvis and pulling it up and back. If you've ever gone into like an Iyengar class, you get to use those rope things. Those are awesome. You can actually feel the hip creases with those ropes pulling you back. Just a few times forward and back, strengthening the shoulders. Good, and the next time that you come forward into plank, you can lower down, bending your elbows close to your body, maybe knees, chest, and chin, or chaturanga. Slide your hands back in line with your chest to reach the heart forward for a little cobra. Feel the tops of your feet strong on the floor. And you're growing up from the lower body into this cobra. And exhale to come down. You can come up another time or two. Feel the tail of the cobra is grounded first. So the tops of your feet. The inhalation will start to draw your heart forward and up. And you can tuck your chin a little bit, Flo. Yeah, just a little, just feel that the back of your neck is still, yeah. It's just different, just makes your head part of the whole situation. And then you can come down. When we toss the head back, it's like this can sometimes disconnect the head from the rest of the shape. Great, and then you can press yourself back to downward facing dog when you're ready. However you need to get there. Coming back to downward facing dog. Bending both knees this time. Sticking your hips way up in the air, your tail way up in the air. And then starting to sink the heels towards the floor. Whether or not they touch doesn't matter. Nice. And then you can walk your feet towards your hands or your hands towards your feet. Coming to Uttanasana. And here, I would say definitely bend your knees, no matter if you feel like you need to or not. It's just nice. Have your knees bent. You can feel those feet on the floor. You can allow the spine to cascade down over the legs, and your fingers can come in line with your toes. So it goes like hand, foot, foot, hand, all in one little line. And this brings the elbows back and coaxes the shoulders away from the ears. And finally, just notice if the jaw, the tongue, the neck is holding away from the floor, and you can just let them release to the extent that they feel comfortable. Great. Shift your weight a little bit further into your toes. Just see what that feels like. It's like you're bringing your hips over your feet a little bit more. Yeah. Awesome. Inhale to come halfway up. Maybe bringing the hands to the sides of the legs, pointing the head and tail in opposite directions. And then exhale to fold. Inhale, come all the way up. Maybe bringing the hands out through the sides as you rise up. Urdhva Hastasana, reaching up with the fingertips, pressing down through the feet. And then exhale, bring the hands down through the sides, down through center. Pause. Tadasana, mountain pose. Just notice whatever you notice. Great. And then I'd like to take a wide stance. My head's going to be cut off no matter what, but it doesn't really matter. Hopefully I can use my words. So you're going to take a wide stance with your feet turned out slightly and your knees bent. Yeah. And feel again, now you've got your legs, your feet in a different configuration, but feel the four corners of the feet are still on the floor. You can take a nice bend in your knees so that you can feel like you have a little bouncy room. You have a little swaying side to side room. And then just notice where the pelvis is. This is going to be, center. And the heart is right there above the pelvis. Final detail would be to tuck the chin a little bit so that the head is part of the whole deal. And feel as though you're pressing not onto the floor, but through the floor with the feet. So it's almost like the feet now are going kind of at a diagonal, down and away. If you're like a tree, these are the roots that are going down and away. And I find that just takes a little bit of pressure off of the muscles. The muscles lets us use more of the muscular structure as a whole thing. Awesome. Now squat, just kidding. Leg day. So let's this is very different from if you did this at the gym in the by the squat rack, it would be very, very strange and maybe a little dangerous. But let's bring the arms out to the side. So your arms are kind of making the same shape as your hands. Or what? Hands and legs. Whatever, you're starfish. Just starfishing. All right. And can you feel this thing of head, heart, belly, pelvis? It's all in one line. And what we'll do is we'll inhale here. And as you exhale, you'll take your left elbow and just kind of dip to the side in the little side bend. Yeah, we'll start just there. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling to the right. So it's like if you were leaning against a wall, you wouldn't really be changing your pressure on the wall. Your tailbone is slightly tucked down towards the earth, and you're just kind of sliding across the wall. Yeah, and come back to center. This time when we go over to the right, once we get as far as we can go, we'll start to round the spine like you're holding onto a big beach ball. Come around the other side until you meet that wall behind you and come up. Yeah, so you'll inhale, you'll exhale, you'll come around to as far as you can go into the side bend, then you'll round, your whole self is rounding around this big beach ball, you'll come to the side again and then come up. And try and use one exhalation to do this big circle. Yeah. So it's like you're coming to a side bend, then you're coming into cat pose almost, and then you're coming into a side bend, and then you're coming up. Does that feel good? Make sense? And then you could just give yourself a rest for a moment, maybe bringing your feet together, coming back to Tadasana. And you might already feel just some change in space around the lungs and the upper body, through the shoulders. And we can come back to that position. Just one thing that I want to note is watch out for tension in the shoulders here. Like this shape is really just to mimic kind of what's happening in the lower body. So if you're a tree and these are your roots going down, and it's easy to go down through the earth. So too, is it just easy for your limbs to grow up into branches, and your shoulders can move. And so we'll inhale here and we'll go to the other side. So you'll come with I believe to the left in a side bend. Feel your feet on the floor. They're going to stay sturdy as you come into cat pose and around the bend. Yeah. Exhaling, using one long exhalation to move through this movement. And it can be kind of fun. It can be like, wee. And feel just how your feet are so clear on the floor, and the upper body can just kind of, yeah, groove. Excellent. Okay, you can lower the arms now, just step your feet back together, noticing whatever you notice. Yeah. Great. Turn back to face the front of your space. Now we'll move through a little flow type something. We'll inhale, reach the arms up into the sky. Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale to fold. Uttanasana, bending your knees as much as you want. Maybe take a breath or two here just to breathe into the back body, into that space between the shoulder blades. Inhale to come halfway up. Exhaling to fold. And then let's step the right foot back and then the left foot back to come into a plank. Exhale to lower, however you choose to do so. Chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. I'm taking for granted that I know you guys all know this sequence, so I'm not really spending much time on it. But inhale, come into the back bend, ensuring that you have your cobra tail there to support you, the tops of your feet that are coiling from the low back, and that the breath is moving up into the collarbones. That's what brings you up. Good. Exhale to come down. And then you'll press back to downward facing dog. Nice. When you're ready, inhale the right leg up and back. We're going to continue just having fun with these limbs that we've got. Exhale, bring your right knee to your right elbow. So you're coming into plank, shifting forward, and you're hovering that foot above the ground. Yeah. Inhale, come up and back. Reaching through the front of that right hip, reaching all the way back through the foot. And then exhale, bring that right knee now to your left elbow. So you're coming to like a little twist. Yeah. And then come up and back once again. Exhale, lower that right foot down. Downward facing dog. Let's try it on the left side. We'll inhale the left leg up and back. Lengthening through the whole left leg. Feel how the left leg comes from like the middle of the spine. You can imagine that it starts somewhere around your solar plexus. And then you'll exhale, bring the left knee to the left elbow, rounding the spine like cat. Inhale, coming up and back. Exhale, bringing it across. Nice. Inhale, coming up and back. Exhale to lower that leg, downward facing dog. You also have the option to rest in child's pose for a moment if you'd like. You're just noticing whatever is true. I'll kind of add on to this. If the wrists are feeling tight, I apologize. There's a lot of downward dog. We'll inhale the right leg up and back. Exhale, bring it to the right knee to right elbow. Inhale, up and back. Bring that right knee to the left elbow. And then if you want to get kind of weird, you can step that right outer foot down out in front of you. Yeah. And that left arm can come up. Whee! What? I don't know. If it happens, it happens. Stretching through the left side and then come back down. Exhaling back to downward facing dog. I gotta change size, otherwise I'll hit my door. Inhale the left leg up and back. Exhale the left knee to the left elbow. Inhaling up and back. Exhaling across, maybe cutting that left leg across and coming up and over with the right arm. Feeling that stretch from right finger to right toe. And then exhale, come back, downward facing dog. Awesome. Step your right foot in between your hands now. And then let's bring the arms up for a lunge. You can have your knee down or lift it. It's completely up to you. Arms can come up on either side of your ears. And now you're feeling this space through both side bodies at the same time. It might even turn into a little back bend if that's what's happening. Another option, of course, is to bring the elbows out to the side. It can be nice, or interlacing the fingers behind you. And then bring your hands to frame that front foot. You'll step that foot back, come back to downward facing dog. And in your own time, maybe you rest here for a bit, or maybe you start to bring the left foot in between the hands. We'll do a lunge on the left side. So pressing into both feet to come into a lunge, or maybe bringing that back knee down is nice too. We're finding some strength and stability in the legs. The outer hips are hugging in towards the midline. The core is alive and well and awake and helping support you as you let the arms express however they want to express. There's space. And then exhale, bring your hands down when you're ready. And step that foot back, downward facing dog. And we'll just walk the feet towards the hands, coming to Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Let your knees bend as much as they want to. Yeah. Feel your 2 feet on the floor and feel your weight shifting a little bit forward into the balls of your feet. You might imagine if your like backs of your legs and your butt was against a wall and it had to kind of all come in one line, what that might do to, yeah. And allow your face, your neck, your jaw to just hang. You might grab opposite elbows here if that sounds good. Ugh. Inhale, come halfway up. Bringing your hands to the sides of your legs, perhaps, and then exhale to fold. Inhale, you'll come all the way up. And exhale, bring your arms down through center. And checking back in with the 2 feet on the floor, as we did when we were on our backs. Feeling really clearly your 2 footprints, what they are touching, what shapes they make. And then we'll start to chill out a bit with an inversion. So let's take that wide stance again, but this time the toes will all face the same direction. So we're setting up for Prasarita Padottanasana. If you know that you like to use a block or a book underneath your head, you can grab one. It can sometimes be nice, but all of your toes are facing the front. And first, I just like to imagine, like, what if this was how you stood? Finding some sort of balance with such a wide stance. So finding the way, I guess another way to think of finding the way that the rest of you organizes over this really wide base. Just as we do in Tadasana. And then you can bring your hands to your pelvis and reach your elbows back a bit. Being mindful that you're not overarching the low back, but you are just reaching the chest maybe a little bit forward and up. Yeah. And then as you exhale, you'll keep that length, keep that openness in the chest as you hinge from the hips to come maybe halfway down. And then finally all the way down. Prasarita Padottanasana. So many things you can do with your arms. You could bring them to the floor, your hands to the floor in line with your feet. You could walk them back. You could grab opposite elbows if you feel like you're far enough away from the floor where you can just hang here. Or you could interlace them behind you for a little extra shoulder something. Yeah, reaching the knuckles up towards the ceiling and then probably maybe eventually almost forward, depending on the mobility there. But most of all, find your feet on the floor. It can be nice to take a soft bend in the knees, even just to have a little bit of feedback. And you might notice that your head is really close to the floor right now, and maybe you widen your stance just a little bit more to make the crown of the head touch the floor. If your head is not touching the floor, maybe you find some blocks or books, or maybe you just imagine that it's touching the floor. It's going that way. I feel like it all achieves the same kind of purpose. The only reason to have something touching your head, as far as I can tell, as far as I know, just it's kind of gives a little bit more feedback, sensory feedback through the crown of your head and therefore the rest of your spine. Can also maybe create a sense of grounding to have that place touching the floor. Great. Nice. So you might notice with each breath that the spine is getting maybe a little longer, a little more spacious. The feet, the legs might be feeling a little tired, but notice how they're still supporting you. How it actually takes a lot of strength in the legs to allow the spine to find that space and that kind of easy hanging. And now go ahead and walk yourself halfway up. You can stay here as long as you want. If you want to hang out longer, that's cool. But you might come halfway up so that you're in like a really bizarre, like short downward dog, long, wide legs. So the palms will come down onto the floor, or maybe books or blocks. And the head and tail are reaching forward and back respectively. Bring your right hand underneath your face, and you'll take your left hand to your hip. We'll just open up into a little twist. I actually like to bring the palm of the left hand to my sacrum to feel that indeed my lower body is staying stable and that the twist is happening around the middle of the torso rather than in the lower back. So you're moving the left ribs to stack on top of the right ribs. That's where they're headed. That left shoulder is opening up towards the ceiling. Maybe that left arm comes up to reach towards the ceiling. If it does, it should be in the same line as that right arm. Straight up and down. Notice your feet on the floor, how they're supporting you in this twist. And then you can unwind and for a moment, just let yourself hang back in Prasarita Padottanasana for a bit. Letting breath come into both sides of the back body, both sides of the spine. Then you'll walk yourself halfway up once again, setting up that long spine, head to tail. Bring the left hand in front of your face and the right hand somewhere on the hip, maybe up towards the ceiling, maybe on the sacrum. Just a little twist. The right shoulder coming to stack on top of the left shoulder. The right ribs coming to stack on top of the left ribs. And the lower body is stable. If the chin or the gaze wants to look up, just see that the chin is tucked in so that you're not craning to look up, but rather it's like almost by happenstance that the cervical spine kind of follows in this twist. It's like, oh yeah, here we go. Kind of follows what's already happening through the rest of the spine. Just like the rest of the spine, the neck stays long. And then come back. Let yourself return to symmetry, hanging down. Inhale, you can come halfway up. And let's heel toe the feet a little closer together. Turn the toes to face out. So we're in like an uttanasana sort of almost with the toes facing out. Then you can start to sink the hips down towards the floor to come into garland pose, malasana squat. Whee. A lot of things to do here. You could press palms to kind of reach the knees away from each other. You could not press palms. You could let the arms kind of just flop over the knees. If you want to start to feel into the groin, kind of groin stretch, these elbows can be really helpful. Feel the tailbone getting heavy and the rest of the spine growing out of the tailbone. Check that the neck, the shoulders aren't wanting to, in an effort to look up, the neck and shoulders aren't doing that, that it's really the sternum that's trying to look forward. For me, when the sternum is trying to look forward, like my head and my chin looks almost a little bit down to get in line to let the chest come forward. It's kind of weird. Sometimes reaching the neck forward will actually collapse the chest. You can just play with what it means to have the chest lifted. And then let your pelvis get super light. It'll come up, you'll float the pelvis up and come back into uttanasana, standing forward bend. Bringing your feet back to parallel. Good. Plant your hands, please, and step back to downward facing dog. One last downward facing dog to stretch through the armpits, stretch through the backs of the legs. And then exhale, bring your knees down, coming back to child's pose, balasana. Here, I feel like I'd recommend bringing the hands in line with the feet if that feels good. So the fingertips are reaching back. It can be nice just to take some of the work out of the shoulders and upper back. Good, and now we'll come to our backs, however you want to get there. Maybe you walk yourself up to a kneeling pose and then make your way down. I guess that makes sense. I don't know, I didn't think this part through, but we're coming down to our backs. Good. So you're coming back to lie on your back with your feet flat on the floor. Noticing the back body, how it's interacting with the floor now. If there's any space in the chest you might be able to feel as you inhale, the chest is kind of opening up towards the ceiling as the breath comes in. The collarbones are spreading. There's like a buoyancy in the chest. And the chest stays open as you breathe. So the belly moves out on the inhalation, sinks back down towards the floor on the exhalation. And that chest area is just delicately kind of shining open, up and open. And then please bring your knees in towards your chest, Appanasana. Hugging the knees in towards the chest. Squeeze the right knee in towards your chest and bring your left foot back down to the floor. And then maybe if you feel like you can maintain the support through your pelvis and your shoulders, you can start to reach the left leg long across the floor. Yeah. And you can flex both feet powerfully. So you're energizing through every single toe, through the arches of your feet. And as you're squeezing the right knee towards your chest, the chest can stay open, spacious. The arms can stay melting down towards the floor, the outer upper arms. Even as you're using your muscles to squeeze that right leg towards your chest. And then go ahead and bring that right knee across for a little bit of a twist and a little bit of an outer hip opener for the right side. So you're bringing the right leg across, your left leg is long. You can bring it down to the floor, but I don't know, to me, it's kind of nice to let it kind of hover. You can hold it with your arm and support it as you breathe into that outer hip, lower back area on the right side. The right shoulder is going towards the floor. The right knee is coming across, going towards the floor the other way. Yeah. And some people can straighten that leg and hold on to the toe or hold on to the strap or whatever. You do that, or you could keep the knee bent. Come on back to center, squeezing the right knee in towards the chest and slide the left foot now up to standing. Feel the back of your pelvis and your shoulder blades on the floor. Feel the left foot really clearly on the floor. And then you can bring the right ankle to your left thigh, bringing your right knee out to the side to come into a supine pigeon situation. Maybe just resting here with that right knee out to the side, using the right hand to press it away from you, or maybe lifting the left leg off the floor, grabbing the back of that left hamstring in front of the left shin. You can choose, as with everything, choose your own expression, what feels good or what feels interesting or fun or nourishing. And just like in Malasana, you can use your elbow to kind of exaggerate the external rotation in your hips. So you could use your right elbow to press your right knee away from you. Be sure that both feet are still flexed, especially that right foot. And breathing into wherever you feel sensation. Not really sure what the hell is wrong with me, but everyone's like, my outer hips are kind of sore. And I'm like, cool, we're doing a standing sequence. Here's where we get to release some of that. And it's kind of funny. Sometimes you can feel like there's that kind of stiffness or tightness of, oh yeah, I worked out or I did some activity that probably used those muscles more. And this is a result of that. Then there's this other kind of tightness. I don't know if you're maybe sensing into it or have sensed into this other tightness. That's kind of like, this is just a kind of pattern holding that seems to be for no reason. But it is for a reason. It's some sort of defense or tactic that your body is meeting the world with day after day. It's by no means a bad thing. Over time, it can cause like chronic tension or chronic pain. It's kind of uncomfortable. But there's also a purpose of why there's holding there. For now, we don't have to get into the reasons why. We can just notice the sensation and then notice that we are noticing. When you feel ready, you can bring your foot back to the floor. You can hang out on this side as long as you want to. You don't have to change sides quite yet. But you'll bring both feet back down towards the floor. So both footprints are now on the floor. You're kind of maybe readjusting, finding once again the back of the pelvis, the whole back body supported. You'll keep that sense of support as you draw your left knee now in towards your chest. Laying back with your upper body, with your shoulders, laying back into the floor, flexing the left foot. Yeah, nice little, we've got some wiggling going on. We've got some circles going on. So good. Awesome. And then you can start to straighten the right leg. If that feels like the move, you want a little front of the hip opening. And then holding your left knee in your right hand, you can draw your left knee across in a little twist. Maybe it comes down towards a prop or something. Maybe it kind of floats. And then another option, of course, if that's your style, is you could straighten that leg and hold on to the foot. Oh, I have a wall here. I'm set. I can just chill like this. Just feeling this outer hip opening and then a gentle twist in the upper body. That's all. So many different ways to do it. Breathing into, as if you could breathe in and out through your like hip socket of your left side, where that gigantic leg bone comes into the pelvis. All of these strong muscles that surround that joint can just breathe into, as if this place is very spacious and airy and light. And then come back to center when you are ready. Slide the right heel back towards your pelvis so that your right foot is on the floor. And you'll bring the left ankle to the right thigh to come into some kind of supine pigeon hips opener. And feel here that your back of your pelvis is still grounded in the floor. Your sitting bones are still reaching towards the floor. There might be one side or the other that feels heavier. You might kind of experiment with shifting side to side a bit. As if you could breathe from those places. Just noticing sensation and then sending your awareness there, sending your attention to that place by imagining that that's where the actual exchange with the atmosphere is taking place. Great. And then when you feel ready, you can come back down, bringing your feet back to standing. We'll do one more little hips thing. We'll bring the right leg now, the right ankle back to the left knee, like we're gonna do that shape again on the right side. So the right knee is going out to the side. The right ankle is on the left thigh, left knee. And then we'll just draw the left knee across. Actually, sorry, do the other side. We'll bring the left foot to the, yeah, because we're going to stretch the right hip, I think. Yeah. The left foot is on the right thigh. You'll move the whole situation over to the left. So your left ankle is kind of weighing down your right knee, and the right knee is going at a diagonal down and forward. Okay. Sorry if that's kind of confusing. You're bringing your right knee across. You're using your left leg to kind of weigh it down. Another version is maybe you cross your legs kind of closer to the thigh, but I kind of like bringing the knee out to the side. You get external rotation in the left leg, internal rotation in the right. And can you feel that that right knee is reaching not necessarily towards the floor, but more like at a diagonal down and forward? Yeah. You can play with it and find the, nothing should be pinchy or painful, but you might find a really awesome, terribly sensational kind of opening in the front of the right leg. A lot of hips openers, we focus on external rotation. This is internal rotation. Yeah, yeah. Can sometimes feel it like all the way up into like the psoas area around the pelvis, into like the low belly even, as all of these structures are connected and communicate to each other. Incredibly, when we slow down the breathing and we bring the breath into kind of a rhythm that signals safety to the nervous system, these leg muscles can feel that. They're feeling like the action of the diaphragm is different. And the leg muscles are like, okay, we don't have to run. Similarly, when there's tightness in the hips, sometimes it'll constrict the breath. So we're doing both right now. We're letting the whole body know that we're in no rush and no immediate threat. When you're ready, you can come back to center. Now we'll do the left side. So you'll come back, bring both feet to stand. Bring the right knee now, or ankle to the left knee. And move the left knee across, guiding it with your right ankle. You'll move the left knee across and come into this front of the outer left hip, leg, everything. Stretch. It can be nice to land on something if you have a prop or something. In any case, you're just breathing into the whole front of the left leg, the outer hip, the lower belly. Your left knee is pointing almost down and forward. And this is subtle. I should have said it on the other side. Can you feel that your tailbone is kind of pointing the same way also? Tailbone is pointed down. There's no collapse in the low back. Everything is kind of following the point of the left knee. So we played with some free, kind of playful, dynamic movements in the upper body, kind of just shaking some stuff up in the shoulder girdle. And we're playing with this smooth, slow, grounding kind of hips opening. Slow breath, a longer held posture. I feel like both are really important. Since these muscles are bigger and holding sometimes some more tension, I feel like it's nice to move slowly with the hips. And then when it's time, you can come back to center and take a moment with both feet flat on the floor. And then when you're ready, you can move into savasana, corpse pose, or if there's any other shape that you want to take, you can, of course, you should do that. But you might come now to lie down and allow your feet to have some space in between them, your toes flopping out to either side. Your hands can come out to the sides, your palms facing up. There's space between your legs, there's space between your arm and your side body. You might make a couple of slight adjustments as you're arriving, tucking your chin, broadening across the chest. And then you can just start to rest here and feel into now where you're touching the floor. Many, many body parts touching the floor now. So you can kind of give yourself a tour from the backs of your heels, walking up the back body, just noticing where you're touching the floor. If you were lying on sand, where would the sand dip down to hold you. And then there are those places where you're not touching the floor, the curves and arches that move away from the floor beneath the knees, in the back somewhere, behind the neck. And here you might imagine or sense that there is, there's space. You're resting on some space. The sand you're laying on in your imagination can come up to meet you there. So you're supported, even the places where you're not literally grounded into the ground. Can the air that's moving around underneath those arches be just as supportive as the actual floor? And beginning at the ankles, I'd just like to bring your attention to the fronts of your ankles and the way that they can soften now. The tops of the feet can kind of open up towards the ceiling as the ankle joints release. The fronts of the hips, you can just feel all of that space around the thighs, the low belly, the hips. Feel the hip joints blossoming open towards the ceiling. You could feel into your wrists and your hands and just allow your fingers to be soft. As your shoulder blades rest back into the floor, you might notice the collarbones and the heart space opening up towards the ceiling. The throat can be soft. And finally, just becoming aware of the back of the head, notice the way that you're held by the floor and that there's no need to express or communicate anything through the facial muscles. That you can actually soften through the face maybe just a bit more. Letting the face open up towards the ceiling. And then if you can kind of feel the whole back body resting back on the floor, supported. And then the whole front body open towards the ceiling. Super easy. And you're welcome to rest here as long as you want to, or move into some other meditation. If you'd like, you can start to make your way to a seat to close, but you don't have to move just yet if that's not right, But if you feel like it, you might come to sit. Might prepare to meditate for a while. Might stay in your own zone. And we'll close with the sound of Om. We'll chant Om once together. So you're welcome to join me or to just feel the sound wherever you are. So we'll inhale to Om. Thank you to this ancient practice and all of its teachers. Thank you all for being here. I'm so glad that we got to practice together today. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you all.